Ladies and gentlemen, I hope everyone has enjoyed their meal tonight. But it is now time to move on to a few of the other festivities that Savannah and Garret have for us tonight. And the first thing we get to do is find out how well these two know each other with a little game that we call the Shoe-lywed game. And you'll notice that each one of them have two shoes in their hand. Each one has a shoe that is white that says bride on it. Go ahead and hold up those shoes that are white. You can clap that if you want, Wes. That's cool. And the other shoe that's black says groom on it. So go ahead and hold that up for everybody. Now what we're going to do is we're going to ask them questions that can only be answered by either holding up the white or the black shoe. So we're going to see how well you guys have this down by asking a test question. Now right now, who is literally wearing the pants? Yeah, she goes, oh, literally? Well, then I think we all know this. Who figuratively wears the pants? Oh, Garrett's holding strong. We like this. Now, between the two of you, who drives faster? Oh, no, someone correct her. She's not supposed to look at Garrett's answers. But who's the better driver? And when you were dating, who made the first move? And who initiated the first kiss? I tell you, her hand just like shot up. That made an impression on her. Who said I love you first? Someone's gonna have a talk tonight. And between the two of you, who's the bigger flirt? And who's more romantic? You guys are okay with that answer, by the way. Now, who has the craziest friends? And who has the loudest family? Are they right? Now, who's more likely to bring home a stray animal? And who's the bigger baby when they get sick? Makes sense. That makes sense. And who's more likely to wake up grumpy in the morning? So now, I know this has probably never happened, but at some point in your relationship, you're going to get into a fight. It's going to happen. Who's going to start that fight? And who's going to get... Oh, she came around to the idea. It's all right, Gary. And who's going to be the first to say, I'm sorry? He's a smart man. He knows this stuff. And right now, who's the person you love more than anyone else in the world? And that is how the game is played. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the next part of our evening relies on all of you. So we encourage laughter, cheers, and even the occasional "aww," because it's now time for Savannah and Garrett's love story. Oh, some of you got it. You're right on cue. I like it. Now, their story started when they were both just 14 years old. And it was a story that wasn't supposed to happen. At 14, Savannah wasn't looking for a boyfriend. The thought of telling her dad about a boy scared her to death. And she was sure that when she wasn't in class or playing softball, that Daddy wanted her thinking about class and softball. Now Garret, he was a little bit different. He was more than happy to spend his time thinking about girls. He was 14, and we would be surprised if he was thinking about anything else besides maybe baseball, right? Maybe. But Savannah was not a girl he thought about. He knew nothing about her. But that was all about to change. See, Garret had this friend, Jalen. Yeah, some of you know him. And Jalen was terrified of talking to girls. He liked them. He liked girls. But he just couldn't start a conversation with them. He had a way around this, though. He would enlist the help of a good, loyal friend to start a conversation with a girl and talk up Jalen. Get a sense if the girl was interested in him, and then get Jalen and the girl together. And when Jalen set his sights on Savannah, he decided Garret, he was a good, loyal friend that would help him out. And honestly, Garret was probably the obvious choice anyway, because most people that knew both Garret and Savannah said they looked so much alike that they must be sister and brother. And since Garret would never date his sister, Jalen was sure Garret would stick to the plan. Well, he didn't. Now, to be fair, Garret had every intention of convincing Savannah that Jalen was the man for her. But something happened along the way. It started off simple enough. Garret was able to get Savannah's number and started texting her. And she started texting back. And I imagine that the text went something like this. Hi, I'm Garret. Little smiley face. Garret? Little confused emoji. Yeah, I have a class with your friend Haley. Cool, Haley's the best. Heart, heart, heart. But after a short time, they were texting non-stop, all day long. And on more than one occasion, Garret would get his phone taken away from him in class for texting Savannah. So he'd borrow Haley's phone. As she remembers. Savannah and Garret realized how much they had in common. They both played similar sports, had similar families, and everything just clicked for them. And Garret, he found himself falling in love. Yeah, that was an awe moment, by the way. Oh, yeah. Now, Savannah knew Garret was special, too. I mean, he had to be special because for the first time, she wasn't scared to introduce a boy to her dad. And at 14, Savannah was a realist and knew relationships come and go. But that didn't stop her from telling her freshman softball team that, quote, I'd marry that boy. And Savannah told me, I was hoping and praying I would end up with this handsome, nice Christian boy. I really loved him with all of my heart. And it just felt the way it did, which makes me believe that God put him in my life for a reason. Poor Jalen. He knew nothing about what was going on. He'd look over at Garret texting away with Jalen's dream girl, thinking, man, Garrett's really got my back on this one. But don't judge Garret too harshly here. When he realized he was falling for Savannah, he was so worried that Jalen would be mad. But then he decided that if you snooze, you lose. And Garret did eventually tell Jalen how he felt, and Jalen was a good friend, and he gave them their blessing. And from that day forward, Savannah and Garret were inseparable. And their thumbs became super strong and fast from all the texting that they were doing with each other. But over the next few years, These two grew as a couple, and life was good. And they knew that they were going to be together forever. So there was only one thing left to do. Go buy a house, right? So on May 15th, 2015, Garret and Savannah woke up and said, let's go house shopping. Now, I assume that was through text, and they probably included a cute little house emoji in there. But they had no intention on buying a house that day. But by the end of the day, they had purchased a brand new build that'd be ready in 6 months. Now, Garret and Savannah knew that the right thing to do was to be married before they lived together. So this put a bit of added stress on Garret. He had no idea how to ask Savannah to marry him. He did, however, have a ring, which Savannah didn't know about. And she thought she knew everything. She thought she knew Garret so well that there was no way she'd be surprised when he proposed. But when he asked her to go out to dinner the day after buying the house, she had no idea. And when he said that they should go to their favorite restaurant also as a way to celebrate their purchase, she had no idea. And when he said they should dress nicely, she still had no idea. And when he picked her up for dinner with freshly waxed eyebrows, no idea. But on May 16th, 2015, these two walked into Oslo. They followed the hostess towards the back of the restaurant, and as they turned the corner, both of their families were there, with big signs that read, "Will you marry me?" Savannah stood there in shock, not even registering what was happening. But in that moment, Garret busted out the ring, dropped to one knee, and when Savannah finally realized what was happening, she turned towards Garret in amazement. She had tears in her eyes. Or as Savannah would describe it, she was crying like a baby. And then she said yes. And I asked Savannah why Garret is the perfect man for her. And she said, quote, "Garret is the perfect man for me because he knows me to my core. He will do anything to make me smile, and he makes me the happiest girl in the world. He's just different." And she goes on to say, oh yeah, you guys can kiss. She goes on to say that he's my best friend, the one who I tell every single little thing to. He's my rock, and he makes me feel safe, and he makes me feel so much love inside. I feel complete with him, and the most at home with him. Garret and I, as a couple, are different. You don't find love like this too often anymore, with two individuals sticking together through high school, willing to do everything in their power to make this relationship the most loving and successful and stable. Garret is a sweetheart. He's perfect. He's that kind of sweetheart who remembers the exact perfume I wore freshman year. He is the love of my life. He is my everything. And I thank God for this blessing every day. End quote. And I asked Garret why Savannah is the perfect woman for him. And he said, quote, "If I had to narrow it down to why she is perfect for me, it would have to be how loving and supportive she is with me. She always has my back, and I know that I can do anything with her by my side. We just click together. And she is beautiful inside and out, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, dancing for the first time as husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs.